I mentioned on this day 2 years ago that the tragic irony was picked up on by Christians quickly after the event, that the day on which we celebrate the blindingly bright light of Christ each year, the 6th of August, but we've translated it a couple of days, it's the same day on which in 1945 the bright light of a nuclear bomb wiped out the city of Hiroshima in Japan and forever changed war, the mindset of war, and showed one of the possible outcomes of human ingenuity. And as if the immense capacity for destruction was not enough, there is an added element for Christians in that Nagasaki, the other city that was bombed, that was developed back in the 16th century by Jesuit Christian missionaries and was the Christian heartland in Japan. But actually, both events, in a sense, nuclear bombings and Transfiguration, they uncovered something that was hidden from the foundation of the world. On a mechanical, physical level, the bombings utilised the components of atoms, nuclear fission, the hidden potential of some elements, but those things were hidden from our awareness until quite recently. We couldn't see them. But as our ability to see things that were otherwise undetectable expanded, our ability to test those things and play around with them also grew. And because how good human wisdom is, look how good things turned out. Everything's perfect. At the Transfiguration of Jesus, the disciples and we similarly get a glimpse of something which is normally quite undetectable. Namely, a frequency of reality which could be described as spiritual. And in this particular case, revealed the unique identity of Jesus the Christ and how in his person, the created order and the divine found unity. That he is indeed the Word, God, made flesh. Now, in some ways, if a religious person starts talking about different energy and the spiritual realm and all that, some non-religious people might get worried and quite sceptical. But really, and I'm speaking just as someone with a very amateurish interest in a few areas of physics, there is in my assessment a way to try and make sense of this religious language in ways that speaks very well with physical phenomena and the fundamental operations of the universe that cannot normally be seen, but are absolutely as real as you or I or the floor underneath our feet. So we will be coming around on a journey now, back to the Transfiguration of Jesus, but we're just going to take a slight detour to begin. So, the planet Mercury. The evidence we have shows that Mercury, the planet closest to the Sun, has a temperature of about 430 degrees Celsius when it's faced towards the Sun, and minus 180 degrees Celsius on the surface facing away from the Sun. That is like Mercury's nighttime. So it goes from really, really hot to really, really cold. The next planet out, further away from the Sun, is Venus, and it has a consistent temperature, day and night, of around 470 degrees Celsius. And the difference is in the presence of and composition of the atmosphere. So Venus's atmosphere is 94.5% carbon dioxide. And similarly, are you going to get really excited about this? I know you are. the heat energy, the radiation coming to us from the sun, what's coming in, and the corresponding energy leaving the Earth mean that our planet, if it did not have an atmosphere, it should be minus 18 degrees Celsius. It's quite cold. But thank God, we do have an atmosphere. Now, in 1859, that's 164 years ago, a guy named John Tyndall provided the initial answer and experimental evidence to this mystery, which is now very well understood and verified. And he developed a way to measure light frequencies. There's a wide band of light frequencies on the electromagnetic spectrum, and we can literally only see a very small part of that. It's absolutely the case that we just cannot see most of what is right in front of our eyes because our eyes are not attuned to different light spectrums. Our eyes just can't. But Tyndall found that the infrared radiation, which comes out of the Earth, both naturally due to the heat in the mantle, as well as externally received from the sun, that is in the perfect wavelength of infrared radiation, which really excites some molecules in the air around us. Meaning that in his period, the mean global temperature was 13.6 degrees, which is much nicer than Mercury and Venus. And it's actually, for us, only a tiny proportion of the atmosphere that has that effect. About 0.1%. 0.1% of our atmosphere has that effect. Yet those molecules are super sensitive and critically important in trapping heat due to that interactivity with infrared radiation. And that's completely invisible to us unless we have equipment to see it. So the point is, there's a bit of a detour, there is so much going on at all times that we just can't see. It's going on right now, we can't see it. So the point is, thinking along those lines with the otherwise quite mysterious transfiguration of Jesus and the disciples seeing him for who he really was for a moment, maybe, it's quite simple, their eyes were attuned to operate for a moment. They were blessed to operate in a light spectrum that was not normally accessible to us. So there you go, problem solved, mystery solved. Anyway, I do hope it actually does interest you though, because I think there is something there about light spectrum. It's quite fascinating. But focusing back in on Jesus at this event, we are getting a glimpse here of what Christ is like after the resurrection. You know, the future breaking into the present. It's a vision of what comes after the resurrection. And the resurrection of Christ is the cornerstone of our faith. If Christ was not raised, our faith is in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:14. And if the resurrection is true and the available evidence compelling, then we must respond to that. Because how could you not? To quote Richard Dawkins at this point, it's one of his recent interviews. I couldn't quite find the exact video, so it's more of a paraphrase. It was quite interesting. He admitted rather, if God exists, it is the most important thing to know about existence. But we can take that further. Knowing God exists, claiming that everything is God-centric, and having insight into the character of God through various forms of revelation, including the supreme form of revelation in Jesus Christ, like how could you not respond to that and live in light of it and all that that means? If you can get across the line of understanding that that is true, how can you not? In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, people were transfigured into nothing, just the outlines of bodies which had lived. In Jesus, we get a glimpse of our true destiny and the transfiguration that we are called to share in. Philippians 3:21, God will transform our lowly body that it may be conformed to his glorious body. 1 Corinthians 15:49, just as we have borne the image of the one of dust, we will also bear the image of the one of heaven. That's the path we are called to follow. Believe and trust in Jesus and what he reveals about God's self and about us, and follow him that we may be raised imperishable on the last day with all the saints. To him be glory and honour and power. Amen.